You're listening to Being Built. I'm Aaron Davis, the host, founder of Reliant Search Group, here with Mike Nelson. You just founded your own advisory firm.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
MDN Advisors, LLC. It's a little small advisory firm, just kind of getting started in the consulting business in the aerospace and defense market, and using 30 years of experience to kind of bring that forward. And hopefully I can add some value to some folks out there that are looking for a senior leader.
That's awesome. So you're not just getting started in that space.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I have been there quite a while.
We talked the other day over coffee, and you've accomplished a lot of big things in the defense space.
Yep, thank you.
How far back should we go, man?
Start wherever you want.
What made you who you are? That's really what I want to drill down to. What made you? Let me ask you this. This will be a fun starting point. When did you realize you kind of had a knack for leading people?
That was actually well into my professional career.
Okay.
Is when I realized it, but when I look back on sort of my youth, I was always a natural leader. I was always sort of at the person that kind of just migrated into charge, so to speak.
Okay. Were you the oldest child or something?
No,
what
did that to you? I was second. I've got an older sister who lives in Minneapolis. But for whatever reason, it was always just fairly natural to kind of pick up and be the lead person or the team captain or whatever. Never thought much about it. It just seems to kind of always come natural. But it was a few years into my professional career when I realized, hey, I actually kind of enjoy this and leading some people. And there was a little bit of happenstance that brought me to my leadership gig, so to speak. I was a line engineer at a large defense firm. And there was an opportunity for 4 or 5 of us to leave and go join another defense firm. And it was sort of comical. All 3 of them were older and wiser than I was.
Okay.
And when I got over there, none of them wanted to manage. And so the executive that hired the 4 of us away on the same day, he looked at me and said, well, you can either be the manager or I'll go find someone off the street. I said, well, I might as well manage myself. So that's how I got into management.
3 guys you already know.
Actually, and they were all my mentors. And
interesting. So your first management gig was managing people who had taught and led you.
Decades older than me, and they had taught me everything I knew. So it was the easiest management gig ever. Yeah, because they didn't want to be managed.
Sure,
they couldn't really be managed, and all I had to do was make sure they did their time cards, and then that's
how I feel about hosting a podcast. When people come in here with stuff to say, I'm like, I don't have to host anything. I don't have to interview anything. I got interesting people.
It was a fortuitous start. Nobody else wanted the gig, so I got it.
Yeah,
but it turned to be a really great decision for me because it led to a decades-long career in leading and growing teams and growing companies and all the fun that comes with that. And also used a whole other side of my brain that wasn't in the sort of tech engineering space that I had started out with. And I got to use both throughout. Yeah. So it's been great.
What kind of engineering were you doing? You said tech. What kind?
Yeah. So I'm an electro-optical engineer by trade.
Okay.
With a physics background. So sort of deep science meets electro-optical sensors. And all of the work that I started with was remote sensing from space. So all space-based sensors and capabilities for the DoD. At the time, that's kind of where I jumped in and got my feet wet. And my graduate work was all in laser radar. And so all things optical, remote sensing, both passive and active. And the work that I was doing at the time was related to that. And we were doing data analytics and processing algorithms from space-based sensors for the DoD and some R&D programs, which were a lot of fun. Learned a ton about our nation's space platforms at the time. Yeah. This was 30 years ago, so they're much more fun now. And have been with it ever since in some form of remote sensing, sensors, sensor technology, everything from radar to LiDAR to electro-optical to some other bespoke capabilities as well.
I'm curious what's changed in those 30 years. Like, what is much more cool now that didn't exist when you started in that space?
I mean, there's just so many advances that come with technology, right? And so you've got everything from onboard compute platforms, the recent rise of artificial intelligence. And we were doing some of those algorithms back in, decades ago.
What we're calling intelligence now.
You simply couldn't, you didn't have the compute power either. I mean, it was a real constraint. So, modern AI algorithms,
And
they're
training
they're
data was
new
probably
now,
harder
but
to come by too, right?
yeah, and the compute power needed to really run those and make those produce what's now being produced just didn't exist. And so that has come a long ways, which sort of opened up the market to a lot of that computing. And so we did a lot of standard compute and a lot of digital signal processing and a lot of optimization for the computer hardware at the time. And that sort of has shifted now into more of an AI type model. And it's been fascinating to watch. The rise of individual sensor technologies and modalities has actually been pretty dramatic as well. Electro-optics has come a long ways from sort of passive coded optics to adaptive optics. And
What's a adaptive optics?
Adaptive optics are really, they're amazing. So there's sort of like small optical elements, very small, micro scale, that can remove aberrations in wavefronts. So you can focus and clarify images in ways that were never before possible. So it's a somewhat bespoke capability, but that's pretty fascinating, honestly, to watch some of that stuff. So, I mean, that's just one area, I think, of overall electrical systems and optical systems and radar systems that have really matured. The technology has just had a lot of energy and money poured into it over decades, and it's come a long ways. And the other thing that's really transformed the space industry was the cost of launch, right? So historically, it's been incredibly expensive. So the cost per kilogram to get to orbit was incredibly expensive. And honestly, Elon Musk and SpaceX changed that. They came into the game, did a pure commercial play for it, and they brought the government's other competitors in the market, which were very, very few, to the table to have to get their costs down. And they did it for an order of magnitude less than everybody else. And once that happened, everybody got in the game. And then you could put things in space that you could never get in space before because you just couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge game changer. And I don't know that a lot of people really understand the value of something like a SpaceX showing up and winning their first DoD contract and going toe-to-toe with United Launch Alliance and bringing that cost per kilogram down and how that's dramatically changed the whole DoD, frankly, and frankly, the commercial space market as well. There's been a huge rise in commercial ISR. That's been fascinating to watch. When I started and got into this effort decades back, because of cost primarily, it was all very large, very expensive DoD systems that we typically dealt with. And everything commercial was more of a communication satellites kind of thing and GPS and some stuff like that. But I guess that's arguably not, it's not commercial either. But with the rise of commercial imaging, and that was all really catalyzed by, again, a SpaceX launch cost coming down and the value proposition now for venture capital and private equity to pour into those particular domains and get a return on that investment. So now there are systems out there that decades ago, that are commercial, that are decades ago we would have dreamed to have in the DoD that are now commercially available. And you can go buy an image with resolution you could have never gotten before. So it's really interesting and really fascinating. And I sort of watched the rise of that. And, my career, leveraged a lot of that understanding and relationships in that market and tried to position companies that I was with to take advantage of it one way or another. So
how does that, you mentioned the rise of commercial ISR. What's been your observation of the capabilities of other powerful entities in the world, China and others, in terms of compared to our ISR capabilities?
They're scary good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of rhetoric around the fight with China, the fight with Russia. But the fact of the matter is the Chinese, for most of modern history have been the world leader, and then we took over, and they're patiently working hard to take it back.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, we've been out this couple hundred years, or
Yeah.
5,000 years in, or
Exactly.
I've heard that comparison.
Exactly. And they have a whole of nation approach to being the world dominant power. And the US population needs to understand that. It's a real battle. And when that flips, that switch flips, our lifestyle won't be the same. We can't print dollars anymore if the yen is what we're all beholden to, and all of those things that we have as a nation. Now we've got tremendous advantages in some areas, and some areas we don't. AI, we don't have an advantage of. I would say in any real point anymore. So it's a scary thing. You and I both have young kids, 9 and 10-year-olds. And people ask me sort of what motivates me to get up and go back to work in the DOD and DOW now and every day. And I tell people, I said, I don't want my son to have to go off to the South Pacific and fight a war that we could have prevented with China by overmatch and by, essentially making them think long and hard and do real calculations around the value proposition of, trying to take back Taiwan. And that's a real fight. I mean, our fathers and grandfathers were fighting in that same area. And then it went quiet for a while, and thank God it did. And we had the luxury of that. But the probability that comes back and one of our children end up there in 6, 8, 9 years is real. And I would love to prevent that, frankly. And not by just turning a blind eye, but actually, making China think long and hard that, hey, the DOD and the US is so strong that we can't win that fight. And right now, I don't think that's the calculation they come up with.
I was talking with a friend the other day about the interdependence of our supply chains on one another, just all of our economies in general, not just supply chains, but in whether that's helpful to maintaining peace in the world or a big risk for us, right?
Yeah.
I guess it comes down to how well they exploit it.
Yeah.
Those supply chain dependencies. But
yeah,
I feel like sometimes we avoid conflict just because we've built on one another so much,
Yeah.
How much do you think that's true?
So I think that China in particular has an initiative called the Belt and Road Initiative.
It's called the
Belt and Road Initiative.
Okay. I've not heard that.
It's been around for 15, 20 years.
Okay.
And it's a global diplomacy initiative, and it's essentially to lay down roots and infrastructure in countries where raw materials are usually mined. And the whole point of it is they want to own the supply chain. They want to own logistics. Now they have, been partners in many cases in manufacturing and other things, but don't let that fool you. They're there to use those monies from the U.S., that transfer of funds, to essentially dominate all of the supply chains from raw materials all the way through. And so I think, current administration is wide awake to that. And in some cases, it's really, really late to the game. We're scrambling to get, very basic materials into some of these, manufacturing components, especially for the DoD and DOW, commercial capabilities writ large. But when you think about building some of the highly engineered weapons platforms that the U.S. builds, they take a tremendous amount of precious materials. And if we don't own the supply chains for those, at best, we can go to friends with them, looking for them and buying them. But at worst, China owns some of that. Gallium, for example. I think China owns north of 90% of the gallium production globally. And that particular material is used in a lot of different systems, weapon systems. And so it gets a very big problem. And if you don't start putting down, global diplomacy in places where these things, are created and pulled out of the ground, and one day you're going to wake up and the script will be flipped, and you'll be beholden to these these countries where, like, well, geez, we used to be dominant, but now they own our technical dominance by not allowing us to build what we need to build. Like, it's just, to me, the threat is real, and it's not, I don't think tomorrow, but it's not far off from tomorrow if we're not careful and we don't really pay attention and move faster. And when you look at things like current administration and their wartime footing, and I think Pete Hegseth's call to lethality is his big, underpinning tagline, and manufacturability and moving to attritable mass, these sort of phrases. What they mean is we need stockpiles of stuff if we have to go to war, that, our adversaries do the calculation and go, they can actually sustain themselves long enough to beat us. And so, that all of this comes back to sort of, it's all very, very intertwined, if you will. Yeah.
How did you start your career in the DoD space?
I did. I came straight out of graduate school. And that was a lot of fun. And frankly, I owe a lot to the U.S. Air Force. I had a scholarship where I did research and development with Air Force Research Labs here at Wright-Patt while I was going to grad school at University of Dayton.
Okay.
And so I kind of started there and got interested in like some of the work that was going on. I thought that was fascinating. And then I started directly out of grad school at Ball Aerospace, working again at Wright-Patt for one of the agencies over there, and in the intel community, and doing some fun work and really interesting space-based work. It was all DoD related. DoD and national intelligence community sort of intertwined.
Sure.
And Dayton's a fascinating place. If you know Wright-Patt, the breadth of mission touch in a place in the middle of Ohio is really fascinating. It is
kind of wild.
It's really fascinating.
I didn't grow up here. I just kind of landed here.
Yeah,
but
I didn't either.
I grew up in San Diego, though, and it's also a military town. And
yeah.
Different, you get Pendleton and the Navy base there. And so.
But just the amount of agency support, multiple agencies, multiple services, it's really fascinating. It's a great place to raise a family, but also have a meaningful impact on, our nation's defense. And so I was with one of those organizations on base and kind of grew up there. I did, about 5 years at Ball Aerospace, did some engineering work there, and then jumped over to a company called Riverside Research.
Okay.
They're a fascinating company. They're a independent, not-for-profit in the DoD space.
Okay, interesting.
So you don't see that dynamic there's a handful of them out there. They're not completely unique, but they're also, most companies in the DoD space are for-profit companies, and God love them, and been with them since I left Riverside, but Riverside had an interesting, cultural play, and again, being a 501c a nonprofit in the DoD space, that was definitely more of a friend of government, that they gave them some luxury in how they approached contracting and things like that nature. But in general, it was a very much R&D centric technology advancement company.
Okay.
Great underpinnings, good mission, contracts that they had, and I both contributed on those and then managed several of those as well. And I was there.
What kind of work were you doing there for them?
Again, most of the predominantly space-based intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance type work. I started sort of the same thing I was kind of doing at Ball Aerospace, but in a little bit different role, same program. And space-based OPIR at the time. And then I picked up a few other gigs where I was managing some ground, some air, ISR work. And then I started to manage more and more people and less technical work, but stuck with the technical systems engineering, doing a lot of integration of a variety of sensor-based platforms from space. Probably for 4 or 5 years, I was lead systems engineer on that, while I simultaneously was leading a larger and larger team. And
it's funny how they find out that you'll take responsibility for stuff, and you'll own stuff. They find a way to give you more.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, and it's true.
Yeah, I'll make sure that happens. I'll take care of that. I'll solve that problem. I'll clean up that mess.
Yeah.
And the next thing, you're the mess guy. You're the responsible guy.
Yeah, and some people would shy away from that, and I get it. I mean, it does become more work. To me, it was intellectually stimulating,
Sure.
right, to take on new things. I did get a little bored with the routine. So usually my mantra was take something on, fix it, test it out, try it out, get something working, and then find somebody else to grow it and sustain it, kind of thing. And bring other people in that were a little more disciplined and like, steady as she goes, but, good solid growth. And I would move on to something else. So I did take on a lot, but I didn't necessarily make it stick
forever.
So I didn't I didn't burden myself down forever. I would, I'd go find folks, and a lot of those programs were good entry level programs for folks to come in and cut their teeth on, and they were well run by all the people that, God bless them, came in and ran those programs, and I'd move on to other things. And so it was a fascinating career, and so I spent a good 20 years there. At the end of 20 years,
With Riverside, you spent 20 years?
I had 20 years,
Okay,
yeah.
nice.
I started as a line engineer, ended up as a vice president, and answering directly to the president and CEO of Riverside.
Nice.
And I had a very large portfolio of opportunities that we were managing, everything from Defense Innovation Unit out on the West Coast to 2 or 3 intelligence agencies on the East Coast, to some folks down in Florida, to some folks down in Virginia, and a lot of folks in the Dayton area, and just different programs. A lot of national intelligence type work, a lot of DoD, Air Force type work, some Army in there as well, and just fascinating growth. And to be able to touch a lot of that was tremendous. And then around, I guess it would have been the summer of 2021, company came calling by the name of PAR Government. And PAR was a subsidiary company to PAR Technology, which still exists today and is publicly traded as PAR.
Okay.
You can go look them up. PAR Technology is fascinating. They're a restaurant technology company run by CEO Savneet Singh. Great guy, fascinating story in and of himself. But PAR Government, the genesis for that was actually PAR Technology. They were doing work for the Air Force, for Air Force Labs in Rome, New York, which before it was AFRL. And that's how they started the company. The founder, John Salmon, was working on some technology there. And turns out after a few years of that, he created a digital cash register. The story goes, his mother ran a McDonald's.
Okay. Franchise owner or something?
Yeah, franchise owner back in the 80s. And she wanted to essentially digitize the transactions. It was all sort of old school, cash in, cash out kind of thing. And she knew her son was into computers, which is what they do in Rome, New York. They do advanced compute kind of thing. They still do today. That's what AFRL RI is all about. So he did a little research and development project with his team, and they created a digital cash register, kind of like the NCR story, but from Rome, New York. Turned out to be pretty successful. Put it in his mom's McDonald's, ran it for a while. Took a year or two to kind of work out the bugs. And then signed a large contract with McDonald's.
Wow. Okay.
Now that was PAR Technology at the time. Simultaneously, his engineers and his revenue stream was still coming from the Air Force and the research contracts. So he was kind of doing both. And so he took that company, decided to make the restaurant technology business the mainstay parent business because he saw better revenue potential for that. And so he stood up PAR Government and then moved the defense contracts into PAR Government, and then took the PAR Technology parent company public to raise capital to help grow the restaurant technology. So that's how PAR Government became a subsidiary of PAR Technology, a restaurant tech.
Despite being the genesis of the whole
somewhere
thing.
along the lines, there was another subsidiary called Rome Research Corporation, which was also in the defense group. I won't go into that one. But when I took over PAR Government, I also took over Rome Research Corporation at the same day. So I was CEO of both companies at the same time, basically primary and subsidiary. And that was fascinating. Great people, most of which were in Rome, New York. They had a small office here in Dayton. They did some work for Wright Pat, but I ran the company out of Dayton, and then just traveled back and forth to Rome as necessary. And just again showed up and sort of how do I describe them? They're a 50-year-old company. They had their warts. They had really good tech and really good people. great hearts, hardworking, salt of the earth kind of folks, solid engineer, just super technical. I mean, you wouldn't like you go to some of these small towns and you just wonder how do they find this kind of talent?
Right. That's right.
But they do. Like these guys come through engineering school, and I swear they're still using slide rules in some cases. But I mean, they're just good, and they still are up there. And so, they were well liked and came on, and they had a couple of programs. One, they had a program called Android Tactical Assault Kit, or ATAC, which is actually the body worn tool of choice for our special ops fighters. So it's a mobile situational awareness tool. So think a cell phone with moving map and integrated chat that can talk to your on-body radio, that can connect to all your devices, that you can get your commanders, tasking down from, and you can download data into, and you can talk offline with your guys in your own platoon and whatever, right? Like they built this capability.
No cell phone tower needed.
Yeah, and it's ATAC and it's other variants, WinTAC and ITAC. They're a nationwide platform now at this point. You can actually go to atac.gov, or I guess it's tac.gov, and look them up, and you can get a free version if you want for your own personal use, if you want to go hiking with it.
Sure.
And first responders use it, and it's a great platform, still is to this day. And there were something like 500,000 users of ATAC globally.
Wow.
And all special operations forces, both U.S. and other elements around the globe, use it as their tool of choice for everything digital, if you will. So really good program there. And then they had just pinned on sort of early work in counter UAS. This was just before Ukraine really started to explode. And so that was a great position to be in. Then Ukraine shows up, and it becomes a drone war very, very quickly. And so the U.S. DoD figured out real fast that we need counter drone capabilities, because they were watching both Ukrainian and Russians having this sort of asymmetric warfare, and so we were sitting on top of a fantastic contract, really good tech base, and just worked with the team to help grow our counter UAS capability. And make sure that it was meeting the Air Force's needs, but huge rapid growth from a top line perspective, from a finance perspective, along with ATAC. And then we had a handful of other programs as well that were really interesting, but from a revenue perspective were, I guess, smaller outfits. And so I ran that from December of 2021. And then around, I guess it would have been the summer of 2023. So not that long, a couple of years in. We had essentially doubled the company at that point from a revenue perspective. So we were growing really, really fast and having a great time. Savneet Singh and the board from PAR Tech showed up, and they said, "Hey, Mike, it's time to sell. We're going to figure out how you gotten the value up where we want it. And we want to go do more in the restaurant tech firm, and we need the cash, so to speak.
Fun time is over. It's time to cash in. Huh?
They own the company, and and I had known that going in.
You did a great job.
But you did a great job. Time to figure out your exit strategy.
Toys.
Yeah, and I had never exited a company before. I had never sold a company before in the M&A market, and I knew going in that was going to be the end game, because Saudi and I had had that conversation. It wasn't. You'd have to be pretty dense to think PAR government was going to, as a restaurant and the restaurant tech firm were going to stick around too long together. So, so we had that conversation. So I knew it was coming, and it was a little bit sooner than I'd hoped, but it was fine. So I worked with the team from summer of 2023 to do banker selection, build management presentations, go through all the management presentations. We had Baird was our banker. They have an aerospace and defense group run by Jean Stack. She's fantastic, best in the business, if you will. I give her, huge creds. But they took us through one after another, multiple buyers. We had, with our ATAC history, even though they were a small company that a lot of people hadn't heard of, those in A&D knew all about it, and they knew exactly who had, keystroked ATAC and what that meant. And they also were tracking hard on counter UAS. So now we're several years in, everybody's looking for a counter UAS solution. Some are trying to roll their own and kind of grow it organically. And all of a sudden, the firm with sort of the Air Force's, net 2B program of record counter UAS system comes on the market. And so you can imagine
That's
there was
great timing.
tremendous interest,
Yeah.
tremendous interest. And I give my team huge credit. They stuck with me through the whole thing. Very sort of tumultuous emotionally. If you hadn't been through it, none of them have been through a cell yet, and so and
It was hard.
they were just super, right? And going up there the entire month of December, going through management presentation after management presentation, we did north of a dozen of them. We had private equity firms that wanted to buy and put us in as a platform. We had large strategic companies wanting to buy and integrate us into theirs efforts to make their overall offerings better. And I learned that was like a whole second master's degree to me. That was fantastic. Learned a ton. But we had a great team. We had our act together. We went into that. I had spent a couple of years cleaning up the company. The financials were in great shape. The pipeline was in great shape. The tech was solid. So at the end of the day, we ran the gauntlet. But Booz Allen Hamilton came out on top.
Okay.
They were very eager to buy PAR government for the counter UAS capability and for ATAC in particular, and some of the others as well. I don't want to short shrift those, but the reality was those two contract areas were the strongest. And they had made a corporate decision. They're a massive company. They were $12 billion in top line revenue yearly. And they had made a corporate decision years back to really begin to pivot away from systems engineering and services into providing more hardware-centric products, actual solutions to the government, and less on advisory work. They had historically been an advisor, and they had made some major investments in become a solutions provider, both hardware and software. And this was a huge component of their overall strategy to get into sort of that tactical level delivery. And so we had counter UAS, we had TAC, we had a few others, and it was a fight to the end, but they came out on top.
Nice.
And they were.
What have they done with it since?
They were a fantastic team. So Andrea and Sarah was running the Air Force group at the time, and Judy Dotson was running their global defense group, their sector.
Okay.
Judy's since retired. Andrea took over global defense, and they took the counter UAS and ATAC work into their R&D arm under global defense. Steve Escaravage runs that now, and he's a president of their R&D arm within global defense, works directly for Andrea, and they're integrating that and frankly pushing that forward as a solution integrated with a lot of the other tech that they bring to the fight. So they're doing a great job really getting after it, and they've positioned themselves well as this sort of ATAC team to bring that program to scale, which Booz Allen can absolutely do, and certainly advancing our counter UAS capabilities as well from a Booz Allen perspective. So give them huge street creds. They've done a great job in positioning themselves, and again, really breaking the mold on being a service provider and moving more into those solutions providers. And they've got other things in EW and quantum and other tech that they're kind of wrapping it all together and how they approach the market. So it's been really interesting to watch. I know they still have a tremendous amount of services contracts, and they took some hits in Doge and stuff like that. Not huge, but some. But I think they're on the right path. I think they've got a good strategy. And when you look at the current administration and what they're demanding, which is, they need scalable tech. Booz Allen did a good job of positioning themselves well in advance of that, and I think they're reaping some benefits for that now. So I think that was all very, very good. They were super kind to me. I got over there. I did some integration work to get the PAR team and the technology integrated to Steve and that group. And then they were kind enough to give me a very large Air Force portfolio. And I was running Dayton area, Red Pad area Air Force, Arnold Air Force Base, which is a fascinating little place in the middle of Tennessee, doing a lot of advanced rocket and engine testing. We were doing hypersonics testing for them. Really great place down there. And then down at Eglin as well, the Air Force group there. And I ran that for a while and had a lot of fun, learned a lot more about the Air Force and some of the large programs and test and evaluation that I hadn't learned about before. And so I thought that was great. But after about a year of being at Booz Allen, I kind of got the itch. It's a little difficult to go from CEO running a couple companies. Again, great position to be in as a vice president at Booz Allen. Anybody would, be an envy to be in that position. But I had that itch to go try something new again. Just again, to my earlier point of always taking on something different and moving and leading different groups of people. I decided to test out the VC world in defense, and really wanted. I had a friend that was in a VC-backed startup, and a great little piece of technology. And I took a risk, jumped out of Booz Allen, and spent a couple months over at Sultana, which I was the president of their federal group. And VC-backed is all that you hear about, right? It's crazy. It's wild, wild west. It's high risk, high return, and that was fairly short-lived for me. Probably, in retrospect, maybe more risk than I had anticipated going into it.
Yeah, well, that's the nature of risk, because you don't know all the things that could play out. You're gambling a little bit.
Right,
That's okay.
I will say that even in a very short time, though, I met some amazing people along the way, and so I'm now working with some of those folks, in my advisory role as well.
You're still doing some work with those guys?
Yeah. There's a couple of folks that I met along the way that just sort of seeing, hey, this is high risk. I at least established a small LLC to do some advisory work, and I've had some friends in the consulting advisory business before that tried to get me to make the leap. And they said it was a lot of fun for them, and I wasn't quite there. I wasn't quite ready, but the opportunity came sooner rather than later, but that's okay. And jumped over, stood up the consulting business, and I'm engaging with a lot of the folks that I've known along the way, which is another leadership lesson that I think everybody should take away is remember the people you work with along the way.
Yeah.
Don't lose touch.
Yeah.
It really matters in the end. When you get later in life and you see some of these folks and they end up in very senior positions, because that's just the natural progression of it. It's incredibly valuable, and not just from a usury perspective, but just to have sort of shared experience with some of these people. And in some cases, you were fighting it out on a proposal. In some cases, you were duking it out on the engineering floor or whatever.
Sure.
In a good way, and then to come back, decades later to say, hey, I'm still out here. Like maybe there's something else we can do together, and to have that open door. It's been incredibly valuable, and I appreciate that. And everybody that's reached out so far and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you come support us and help us out, or use some advice here or whatever." I'm happy to do it and kind of toss it and see, see where the next role takes me, and where God's leading us through this whole thing at this point. So that's kind of where I'm at, and so I've just started that up, and not quite sure what the future holds, but at this point. I'm going to work on that for a little bit, see if I can make a go of it. Also, I loved being the CEO of PAR. I thought that was a fantastic role. I thought people were great, had a lot of fun, added tremendous value to the organization, both PAR government and its parent organization at the sell side. And I would love to do that again. I have no qualms taking a company through the M&A process again, and I learned so much about it and would do some things different, but still would just think it's a great experience to go through.
What was your biggest aha moment through that dispossession?
Yeah, people who buy companies typically don't buy the tech; they buy the management team. That was there was a moment. Yeah, it was really they do buy the tech. And that's a little bit piffy, but the reality is when they're valuing the company, I wouldn't.
The upside is
when
the
they're
people.
valuing the company, when they're really making that decision, they're evaluating how well the management team actually looks like it's working together. And again, that's a people lesson that you kind of know when you're building companies, like get great people and you build great companies. But but for whatever reason, I hadn't quite translated it to when you're going to buy great companies, buy great, buy great people kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they got to work together. They got to like each other. They got to, they've got to.
You were more just thinking in terms of the results they create.
I was just thinking, you look at the portfolio and all the, the finances and all of that, and you're thinking, okay, this is a great company on paper. You got the right EBITDA and all that. But what was clear to me after multiple management presentations from multiple different firms is they were really evaluating me as a senior leader. They were evaluating my leadership team as leaders in and of themselves, and then also how well we worked together. Like, if we bring you over here, will you stick together and will you continue to be able to grow? If we give you more resources to help grow, can you continue to do that? And that was a really fascinating lesson for me to just kind of see that. And I've seen the flip side of it as well. I think, Sultana had a strained interpersonal relationships at the leadership team level, and it's struggling because of it. And you can kind of see that. And so it's unfortunate, but it's the flip side of why people who invest in companies, whether you buy them or, VC arms, throw cash down into them, they really look hard at who's leading that team. And can you take them to the next level?
Yeah.
That part was fascinating. And that's, to me, I don't know if it was more important than the tech, but it sure felt like it going through it. Yeah.
Well, especially when you're buying something that has promise. I mean, if you're buying something because of what it already is, or what it's, what they produced historically, great. That's the tech, I guess. But you're also wanting to, it's a multiplier, right? X times revenue or whatever, or whatever your multiplier or whatever your valuation method is. You're measuring potential, the potentiality, and all of that is the people.
Right.
Because anyway.
Yeah.
They could ruin whatever you have, or they could double it.
I think that's where I think Booz Allen's acquisition process really excelled.
Yeah, good.
They are a people firm.
Okay.
And I think that they really looked long and hard at the people team, and they value it. And that's probably why they got a larger valuation for power government. Some of the private equity platforms, it probably was more about, hey, we're just going to integrate the tech, and whether the people stay or go. And that sags the value a little bit at the end of the day. I think Booz Allen got a great team, and they got a great tech base as well. Made
good use of both.
Yeah. I mean, and they made great use of both. And so, yeah.
Yeah. What are you've spoken to some of your accomplishments. What would you say at this point in your career? Is it the acquisition thing or the technology thing? What's the most valuable thing you could do for a firm? Whether as a consultant or an executive?
Yeah. I mean, I think my value lies in coming into a firm that is perhaps not optimized, but has good bones, technical bones, good people, but maybe not the perfect people, and really looking tip to tail, first and foremost, at putting together a management team, a leadership team that can take that organization to the next level.
Let's talk about that for a second, because that's a topic that I love discussing.
Okay.
What's an ideal management team look like to you? Like, what are the attributes that, if you're looking at, hey, this is a B team, I can do something with this. This is how I'd get it to be an A team. What are those? Yeah. What are those variables that you'd be looking at?
Yeah.
Then take your time.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a hard question.
You have an answer, obviously, because you've operated off of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think, first of all, having an ownership mentality. Everyone in the C-suite, on the leadership team, has to feel some level of ownership around the company. Whether that be, they own the inventions and the technology. They were part of the team decades ago that built that out, and they're proud of that. It's great because there's a personal pride in that.
Sure.
Sometimes they feel like they own the people. They shepherd the people, if you will. And that matters a lot to them, to make sure that those people are taken care of and equipped to be successful. But there's an ownership mentality there versus an employee-only mentality, which is I plug in, I plug out, and what happens, doesn't matter. But the leadership team has to be bought in on that ownership. mentality. I think,
What did,
sometimes that can be incentivized, and but more often than not, that usually has to be paired with just a personal desire to
yeah.
be part of that.
How do you see that evidencing itself? Like, what are the signs of that being?
I mean, there's just a level of dedication, and the way that people hold themselves and sort of fight for what they believe in. That's not, it's not parochial, but they can lay out a business case for why we should go, route A instead of route B. But it's usually centered on what's best for the business, and that's what's best for them. And you have to be able to see through that a little bit, right? At some point,
that's a great.
A lot of people they'll fight hard for what's best for them.
Yeah.
And as the senior leader, as a CEO, you've got to do what's best for the business.
Yeah.
Bottom line. And
that's a good sign when you see people making not self-interested recommendations, but just this is the best thing that doesn't serve them.
Yeah.
That's a great.
I think a lot of times, the people that have a sense of ownership around the people, you'll see them advocate for people and benefits and work-life balance and other things that may not be immediate bottom line boosters, but they build strength in the company, whether they know they're doing that or not, and because they believe in the people and stuff like that. But they'll also, in a private moment, when you've got a problem employee and it's clearly a toxic human, or it's somebody that's just like mismanaged, just misfit, right? Not in the right job, they'll also make the hard calls to say, you know what, this person is actually causing the rest of my good people to underperform, and make those really hard calls.
So sense of ownership, a long-term view when it comes to people and investing in people, and an inclination to make, or an instinct to make hard decisions.
Yeah. I think that's all. And grit. I mean, just flat out grit. I mean, business is hard. DoD business is really hard. You've got a lot of regulation. You've got a lot of parochialism, both on the client side and on the, and sometimes in companies. And, it's just, every business is hard, right? It's got its thing. So you got to have enough grit to push through some of that, and the backbone to make hard decisions. And, yes can't always be the answer, kind of thing, but no can't always be the answer either. And so, I mean, I think, that level of grit, I think, matters. Table stakes are actual core competence, and technical competency. If you're the lead of engineer, you got to be really good.
Engineering chops.
You don't have to know it all,
right?
But you got to just be
conversational,
right?
Yeah.
If you're your lead of finance, you got to know your numbers. Like, there should never be a time as a CEO should already know his numbers anyway, but there should never be a time when you ask your CFO, hey, what's this, what's that they either don't know it or they can't find it in a few minutes.
Sure.
Sometimes it's pretty buried, but core elements, they just live and breathe them.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of speed of operation, and it helps.
That's also an indication of that first point that you made about ownership.
Yeah.
Like if somebody else, one of your key, one of your peers in the executive suite is privy to a problem and on top of that and suffering from it, and you're not already on top of it or not aware of it, the risk that it already posed.
Yeah.
That's an indication that you're a little disengaged, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. But I think, in terms of back to your value, question, I think creating an environment where people want to be part of that team. I think that's really where it comes down to, right? I mean, it's not just going out and hiring well. That's a big part of it. But establishing your vision for the company, where you want it to go, believing in it, and then getting other people to really, truly believe in it so that they can have that sense of ownership. And whether that be bringing people up through the ranks, which I did at PAR, or bringing people in from outside the organization, which I also did at PAR. But being able to speak with passion about where you're headed, and why it matters, and then getting people on board. And, and then the rest, again, is there's a lot of like technical things that have to go on, whether it be engineering side, technical, go to market, finances, getting those cleaned up, and all those have to happen. But
you want to know something? That's funny you mentioned that, Mike, because I think those people are drawn to one another. You find a conscientious kind of like somebody who's passionate about the mission they're on,
Yeah.
And then you run into other people who are similarly interested in your specific field of work or your industry or your customer group or whatever.
Yeah.
They'll have that same sense of ownership, even if they're doing something else, right? Like they'll have that same kind of conscientiousness, that same kind of like sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
And so those people click, and it's a natural energy that happens. The next thing you know, they're working together, or it's a client or whatever. It's funny. I find myself being kind of this middleman, necessarily having to kind of discern that kind of energy from clients and making sure that I don't interrupt it as a non kind of like enthusiast about whatever thing that is, right? I am like, I love all things engineering, tech, and I tend to do a lot of work in that space.
Okay.
But there's always some new thing like optical sensors and all that kind of stuff. It's like outside of my real understanding.
Sure.
And I got to be very careful as an agent, as a broker of people, not to interrupt that very natural signal that happens between people who are just naturally energized by the same things and have an equal sense of concern and ownership about that mission that service or that product is associated to. So sometimes I find one of the most important things I do is figure out what the hell this customer that I'm working with is so excited about and why, so that I can carry a little bit of that into that next conversation.
Get the salient points down.
Exactly. So I could, again, just be a little bit of a conduit in that natural, very natural connection. Yeah. Can I stay on that topic for another minute here?
Sure.
Is there what kind of things do you, do you have a tendency toward a certain kind of questioning or scrutiny in an interview process when you're hiring senior leaders? You've promoted them and you've hired them from the outside. So I'm curious if you do you tend toward a particular line of conversation?
Oddly, no. I think it's more conversational.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you're building a leadership team, so you're not building 5 lead engineers. You're not building 5.
It's a very unique.
Yeah. I think about the process of hiring a new business development lead. And then I think about the process of hiring a new financial lead, CFO. Those are very different conversations. Mm-hmm. And at some level, you kind of want different personalities there too.
Yeah.
And I got that, right? And so
your sales guy better not be a lot like your chief legal officer.
Yeah,
Those guys, they better be pretty different.
That's not going to work. I mean, you definitely want to get a sense, first and foremost, of trustworthiness. There is nothing worse as a leader to have someone on your team you can't trust. Mm-hmm. To think they're either being dishonest with you, not fully truthful, which are one and the same, or, frankly, they're just covering for something. Like there's nothing worse as a leader than that. And so I think there's definitely a line of questioning that, not directly, because if you ask somebody if they lie, they're going to tell you no, whether that's true or not, right? Like,
you're looking for means of validation of just general sincerity.
You're just trying to build that rapport. And I think the other thing that I keep in mind is the more time you spend, and I know that can drive people crazy, but the more time you spend, the better opportunity you have for people to show their colors.
Yeah.
And it's hard in an interview process. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you want to go fast. You got a position to fill. You're doing double duty as the lead because nobody else is there. But to take your time, slow down, and realize that you do need to shop around, ask a lot of people different questions, come back to, for a few rounds, and try to get that sense of who they are and how they tick. And of course, their technical ability and whatever it is role you're looking to fill. I think that's important.
It's one of the most telling indications to me that a recruiter, somebody who operates in the executive search or recruiting space, has never been party to a senior level executive search or has never owned responsibility for one. It was when they're advocating for, don't waste, when you got a candidate on the hook, you better make a fast decision. You don't need more than 2 interviews, or all these like move, fast. Yeah. I think, that's great for progressing your pipeline. But as an executive, you're trying to make live or die decisions on a handful of people.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in the world, there's no good reason in the world to hurry that. Yeah. Because you're going to lose that guy. No, he's probably just as carefully making sure you're a good fit.
Right.
And if it discerns you're not and you lose him, that can be a great outcome, right?
That can be a great outcome.
Yeah. So going
And,
slow
yeah,
should
and
not
to
be
that-
a big problem.
Right. I mean, and if a company is in such dire straits that without a single person in a role that they're going to go under in 2 months because it's a 2-month process,
That's right.
you really ought not to pop somebody out of a paying gig,
That's exactly right.
an
That's
executive
exactly
role,
right.
to jump over there to try to save that ship because it's already sunk,
I've never
right?
heard a great argument for somebody making a panic
Yeah.
decision at a senior leader level.
Yeah, it's just not. I just don't think it's real. So I think, so just taking your time.
That's great advice. I like that.
Yeah. The other thing, and this one I'll credit my wife with because this was a hard lesson that I took it hard at the beginning, but it turned into be a great lesson is, right after it got, in that CEO role, shortly thereafter, the first person, kind of looked around and said, "Yeah, I'm out. This isn't for me."
Mhm.
Right? I think it was the lead of our business development at the time.
Okay.
And I took that kind of hard and like, oh man,
Yeah.
he's already quitting on me kind of thing. And, and my wife kind of said, hey, every time somebody leaves is a really good opportunity to kind of upskill that position.
Sure.
There's a lot of really good talent out there.
Yeah.
So don't look at it as they're quitting on you. Look at it as they've created an opportunity.
Yeah.
And you didn't have
Sometimes that's harder than others.
Sometimes it's harder.
Right.
Sometimes you got to create your own opportunity, like
Right.
because this is not working. But
Sure.
in this case, I think, both he and I knew it wasn't really going to work.
Sure.
He was great, but just, he didn't have that, what it was going to take to get us to the next level. And so I would say that, learning that, hey, when somebody does leave, now if everybody's leaving on you, it's probably you.
That could be a bad sign. Sure.
But if, especially when you're in a new role and you're taking things on and you're making a lot of changes, people will leave.
Mhm.
And that's a great opportunity to build your team the way you want that team to
Yeah.
build, and build that trust. And so don't take it hard. Just, go back, find, get a good executive recruiter and
Yeah.
go find some skill. And people are out there and people
Yeah.
want that opportunity. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably another good lesson too.
Good. I
Use the
appreciate that.
opportunities as they come to you.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you for being on the podcast, Mike. I really appreciate the conversation. And thanks for giving me some advice on how to run my business.
Didn't mean to do that, but okay.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right. Thank you. Bye.